Okay, guys. So let's begin. Do you hear me well in the back? By the way, I need to say, like, it feels so good to speak English because Matea, the office manager from ChainSafe, she forbid me to speak English, and I had to, practice my Croatian, which I'm pretty sure you all learned, about how it goes. So first, I would like to thank you all for coming and welcome you all. I would like to also, welcome everyone on the live stream. My name is Patrik. I'm the Polkadot ambassador and also the growth manager at Apillon. So today I'm going to be moderating this event, but I'm going to also have a presentation at the end talking about the Web3 adoption. But besides that, we have 3 presentations in total, starting with Mak Muftić, who is a software engineer from ChainSafe. He's going to present the Sygma bridge, which is a substrate bridge, but he's going to go a bit more into technicals about that. The second presentation will be from Dino from Astar Network, who will present a bit more what he's working on at the moment. So yeah, this is the second Polkadot Meetup in Zagreb, Croatia, and I need to say that I'm pretty happy to see all of you here, but at this point I would like to thank ChainSafe for the opportunity to have the meetup here in this amazing space. The first one was at Swanky, which is also pretty cool, but to be honest, it's not as cool as this one. So, okay, without further ado, I'm gonna give the microphone to Mak and let him take over the stage. So, Mak.
It's working. Okay, hi everybody. First, I'm so happy that you're all here and that we are at our office, and this is like the second meetup. I had a lot of fun on the first one, so I'm excited to see what you are going to learn here, and also what I'm going to learn from like other presentations. So first, as we are kind of in the ChainSafe offices, I want to say something about ChainSafe. As you already know, my name is Mak. I'm software engineer on ChainSafe, and we are a blockchain R&D company that really kind of tackles a lot of problems in Web3 space. We are working on a bunch of open source software, a lot of client implementations. We have our own products and stuff. I would like to highlight just a few of them. Our product called Web3 Unity SDK that kind of allows game developers to integrate their games with Web3 space, to mint tokens. We have our own marketplace. There's like a bunch of features there that speeds up the process of developing games that are Web3 enabled in a way. But also something that we are very proud of, that we are doing a lot of work in open source space. We are developing 3 different clients: the Lodestar for Ethereum consensus client written in TypeScript, Gossamer, the Go implementation of Polkadot client, and Forest, a Rust implementation of Filecoin client. Also, there's Web3.js, a JavaScript library for building Ethereum dApps. And as you can see, we are very involved in we're very involved into maintaining open source software and contributing to it. And what we really kind of appreciate is that we, by doing this, collect a lot of knowledge on different projects in the space. But today we are here to talk about Sygma. This is also an initiative that we started and currently are the main contributor to this project, and that is an open source interoperability layer for building cross-blockchain applications. What does this mean? Well, this means that this is an open source software that enables any dApp developer for seamless experience of calling cross-chain calls, sending tokens between chains, or any kind of action that requires kind of interaction from one chain to another. So let us, I have few diagrams, and wait, first need to find my cursor. Yeah. The main idea of Sygma is for it to be a protocol that is kind of not owned by a specific entity, but what we want here is for this to be an open source project that has a bunch of contributors from the space that are pushing this protocol forward and are enabling even more and more use cases to being built on top of Sygma. Also, our kind of second big goal is to always go, even if that means more development and kind of taking a harder route, is to always enable native bridging between domains. And this is something that's kind of really related to Polkadot, as a lot of bridges that kind of exist now are enabling bridging, but it is not kind of native bridging to Substrate, it is more bridging to EVMs that are built on top of Substrate. But we decided to go through harder route and actually kind of enable a native bridging inside of Substrate. And we will talk more about that. But first we need to kind of describe how Sygma works. And here we are going to talk about multi-party computation and something called TSS. And I'm not going to go into kind of technical details. We can talk about this after the presentation or at balcony. So idea here is that we're using a cryptographic technique where a bunch of entities hold just a partial private key. So idea is that we have multiple relaying partners that are running relayers. And I mean, in bridging space, it's pretty common that you have this model where you have relayers as entities that relay messages between chains. And we have a similar approach to this. The difference is that we are using MPC and even more specifically something called TSS, or Threshold Secure Schema, I think that's abbreviation, that allows us to take one private key and kind of split it between the entities, and then every kind of bridging request is being signed by these entities, but only using the partial key. So full private key is never disclosed anywhere, or it doesn't even exist anywhere. One entity holds only partial private key. And then each request is being signed by these relayers, and then on destination, when you're kind of going from source to destination chain, we can validate if this bridging request is signed by more than a majority of relayers. And idea behind this, that security lies in this, that for somebody to kind of take over the control of the bridge, that kind of somebody should control the majority of the relayers. That's the only way how you can create valid signatures and execute something that is fraudulent. So our entire kind of security relies on this, that you need to take over control of the relayers. And if we were the only ones running all the relayers, then like our security wouldn't be a thing, because it is easy to take over like few servers from one entity. Idea here is for each relayer to be run by some public entity, by some company that is well known in Web3 space, and that is putting their own reputation into running a secure relayer. And then when you kind of decentralize these relayers, you're getting a much better security. And here I want to also mention, because you have a bunch of bridges out there and like different models that bridges are using, and we believe that this is actually a great approach, because even though you can to some extent decentralize even more these relayer sets that are kind of bridging messages, you again are not securing yourself that these unknown entities are going to run it correctly, or that they're actually going to run it. So by having actual companies behind these relayers, we think that we are bringing more security-wise, because these are projects that are actually using Sygma for their use cases, and it means something for them to actually put effort into this. let us actually move forward to the next picture. Okay, so there's a bunch of things here, but I just want to briefly kind of describe what bridging actually means when we are talking in Sygma terms. So idea is somebody who is a user of some dapp that's integrated with Sygma goes to UI, or you use our SDK, I'm going to mention it later, and you start like a bridging request, a deposit transaction, where you define what you want to do cross-chain wise. So you're, for example, let's take the most basic case of just bridging tokens from one chain to another. You're on deposit transaction defining that you're sending 20 tokens A, and you want these tokens on destination chain. Depending kind of if you're interacting with EVM chains or substrate chains, you're going to interact with Sygma contracts or with our palette, and we're going to come also to that. And then relayer set is listening on all the chains that Sygma is supporting. It's catching, the relayer set is catching kind of the event that's emitted on deposit, and then this entire MPC thing is happening where there's always one coordinator between relayers. They're executing the signing process, and then, as we mentioned, on destination chain, we can validate that majority of relayers sign this message, and we consider it valid, and then our contracts are going to execute this on destination. So that's a basic idea behind Sygma and how it works. And as you see, there's like a lot of complexity here, especially because there are some things like fee oracle, and I'm not even going to go into this because it's, at least for now, EVM only feature of you as a user being able to pay fees in dynamic way, where you're paying fees by estimate that's provided by fee oracle. So we don't need for you to overpay fees. To any extent, you're just paying what is going to be used for execution. So in a way, there's no overhead of going through bridge. But to hide all of this complexity and to enable dapp developers to actually use Sygma, we created Sygma SDK, which is a TypeScript SDK that allows dapp developers like easy integration with Sygma. Again, I'm not going to kind of showcase the SDK methods and stuff. You can check out the repo. And I also want to announce that we're very soon going to release a version 2 of SDK that's going to even more streamline this process. So just with few simple calls, you're going to be able to kind of cross-chain, make a call or send tokens or whatever you want to do. And there's also stuff like we have our own Explorer that's going to be live for mainnet, and some additional services on top of Sygma. But there's too many stuff, and I want to go back to Substrate, as this is a Polkadot Meetup. Oh, I forgot about that. This is just like a showcasing the SDK and how it actually hides all the bridging complexity. You're just interacting with the SDK. Okay, so why we even decided to kind of focus on Substrate support? Because we firmly believe that future of our Web3 space or blockchain space, however you want to call it, is going to rely on having these different big players, big networks, and that you're going to need to have a seamless communications between these. I would call them like islands, because these are kind of different architecture of chains, but they still need to kind of communicate in between. So we decided that we don't want to go into add as much EVM network as you can route, which is very kind of famous way of approaching bridging. We really wanted to tackle this problem of connecting to totally different blockchain architectures. So, and our main goal in approaching this was to enable native asset bridging support. So only kind of way for this to happen was to develop our own palette. So to roll back on what I told at the beginning, idea behind Sygma is not to be a project owned by us or any individual entity. but for it to be an open source project that has a bunch of contributors that are actually using Sygma with their projects, or they want dapp developers to leverage Sygma together with their own projects. So in collaboration with Fala, we started and recently successfully finished development of Substrate palette that's going to be deployed on their chain. And this palette is enabling Sygma the actual support for native bridging. So as let's see how fast I can go back. So similar to this picture, where when you're interacting with Sygma through some UI or SDK, you're going to call actually palette methods, and in the same way start a new bridging request that's going to be collected by relayers and relate to destination network. And why we have support for native token bridging, because if your destination is substrate chain, and as we have like our palette implementation, these tokens are actually going to be minted through asset palette, and they are going to be real assets and not synthetic assets. So our palette, it was a fun ride, I have to say, as we as a team didn't have as much expertise with developing palettes. So we definitely learned a lot in the process, and also having a partner like Fala that has expertise in writing palettes really helped. And we just finalized the second audit process, and we should also publish the second audit really soon. So in a way, our palette is ready for mainnet. An interesting point here is that as we were starting to developing the substrate palette, we really, I wouldn't say it hit us hard, but at the beginning we had this idea that it's going to be easy to translate all of this logic that we already had in our EVM contract to palette. But as we learned, writing palettes is totally different process than writing smart contracts. But at the end, we actually managed to kind of replicate all the functionality that we have on EVM contracts, and we are still kind of working on this palette, as there are some features that we are not going to roll out on the mainnet, just because we want to kind of to be sure that we tested it fully before we roll it out. So what are kind of current capabilities of Sygma? So I'm referring here to our kind of DevNet and testnet environment, so what you can currently test. So transferring fungible tokens, I mean ERC20 in the EVM sense, but on Substrate generally fungible tokens, it's available on our DevNet environment, where you can test between Rococo and other EVM testnets that we have. And then also on EVM, we have like a bunch of features from ERC20, 721, and this generic message passing. And I also want to kind of say a few sentences on this, as this is currently an EVM specific thing, but we are putting an R&D effort to also make it for Substrate to support this. Idea behind this is for a dapp developer we want to enable them not just to send tokens between Substrate and EVM, but we want to enable them to actually call contracts cross domains, because this is something that's actually working on EVM to EVM side, and you're able to call complex contract calls. And something that we developed just recently is, so I don't know if you were following, but there was like this big debate about testnets on the EVM side, and we created like entire process of running new validator using Sygma, where it is not just bridging a token, it is calling few contracts and like creating an actual complex action on destination chain. So this is also something that we are putting a lot of effort into, because we think by enabling this, dapp developers are going to use this to create much more complex cases on top of it. Yeah, And as I said, idea behind having these relaying partners is to have actual entities behind these relayers. So for initial mainnet launch, we have Beaver Labs and Astar, that you guys are actually here, so hi to Astar, that are going to run relayers with us. We also have like other companies that we are talking with and kind of preparing everything. I know that Fala is definitely going to be a relaying partner also, as that kind of makes sense, as you will see on the next slide, as this is kind of our minimal scope for mainnet. We are going to launch on Moonbeam, Ethereum, Fala, and Kala. And here I want to touch on something that I missed actually before. So with our idea of having a palette and enabling native token transfer with Substrate. So we don't want to deploy our palette on a bunch of parachains and then have like these pockets that you need to travel to, when Polkadot has like a native way of transferring between parachains. So idea is for our deployed palette on Fala to be kind of an entry point to entire Polkadot system. Also on Kala to entire Kusama system. So when you're bridging to some other parachain, you're actually going through Fala and using XM to transfer further from Fala to destination parachain. So this way we are using a native support for transferring across parachains and not inventing something that doesn't need to be invented in a way. No, I'm going in the wrong direction. Yeah, and mainnet is coming really soon. I don't want to set up a date. That can be a tricky thing, but we mostly finalized all the development effort. It is more a matter of finalizing the audit and preparing some of the operational stuff. And kind of the last part that I want to talk about, and I think is very interesting because maybe there's some of you here interested into diving into this, is that together with mainnet we're launching something called Sygma Builders Program. Idea behind this is that we want to help dapp developers and other teams to build on top of Sygma. We are providing up to 40,000 Canadian dollars paid up in intervals decided by the builder agreement. I mean, you can check all the details, but the idea is not that we're just kind of giving you money to build something. We are giving you technical assistance from our core team, so any issues that you can kind of have or help that we can provide you from a technical side, with testing, with like deployment and stuff like this. And also on top of that, we'll promote your project through our own channels and within our community and make introduction to all relevant ecosystem partners. So yeah, that's it. If you're interested into building cross-chain application, this is definitely something to check out. I think that's it. I guess it is, even though I thought I had the last slide with links, but apparently not. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So, do we have any questions from the audience? Okay, one question in the back.
Regarding the transaction oracle, can you explain more about that?
You mean the fee oracle?
The fee oracle.
Okay, just a second, let me repeat
Yeah.
the question for the live stream. So the question was if Mark can elaborate a bit more about the transaction oracle.
It's fee oracle, but yeah.
Fee oracle.
Yeah. So that's an EVM specific thing, so that's why I didn't go into details on this. I mean, we don't have any breakthrough into oracle design. It is a oracle that is fetching information on gases on different chains, on prices of base currency of different chains, and it is providing a short-living estimate of how much gas is going to cost on destination chain, And based on this, you can kind of dynamically pay gas where you're paying exactly how much the execution is going to cost on destination. So these are kind of quotes that you get, and then you send this signed information together with your bridging request. And if the time period is kind of short enough, so the signature is valid, we are going to allow you to pay fee this way. I don't know, is there anything? We are also kind of researching ways to decentralize this fee oracle, but I cannot really talk about this because this is just like in a research phase. Yeah.
Okay. Any other question?
So I want to ask, how does onboarding of new relayers happens? Basically, it can happen dynamically in terms of NPC computation to share a new key, to delegate a new key share. And also, a similar question, what happens if a couple of relayers just disappear? Do they get slashed? What is the economic situation there?
Okay, so just a second. So
Yeah.
the question was, how does the onboarding of new relayers happen? If it's like a dynamic or
A ceremony or something?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so the initial keygen is kind of a ceremony of initial relayers creating this private key or creating their own shares. Adding relayers, the majority of relayers need to agree to add a new relayer or remove one. But what here we are not doing is this is not kind of an open thing where anybody can join. So if kind of new company wants to join, it needs to communicate towards like Sygma contributors and relaying partners that are already running relayers and kind of ask that they want to. I mean, we have, if you go to our page and documentation, there's like how to do this. So if you want to become a relaying partner, you can kind of come to this group of people and say we are a product, we are a company, we want to run relayer because this and that, and then through running kind of this key reshare event, if majority of relayers agree on this, they're going to add a new relayer to set. Similar, the same process is for removing relayers. If some relayer is kind of shut down until some threshold, then relayers are going to remove that relayer from set. There's nothing more to it.
So there is no, for example, economic state they need to put, they don't get slashed if they're offline, they just get removed if they're offline.
Yeah, there's no economic state, at least at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think there was another question here. From Dino, yeah.
Yeah, just one question. You said, okay, Fala, I know this Fala is the entry point for Sygma Bridge, but why deploy it also on Moonbeam? Is it for the remote calls? Or since I guess you want to funnel all assets to Fala and then from Fala distribute them?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, sorry.
So the question was, why deploy on a Moonbeam as well as on Fala?
Yeah, so Moonbeam deployment is something that we discussed with Fala because they also have their tokens there. So they want to also try to leverage this route. But idea is to actually use Fala as this hub of going to Polkadot world or Kala for Kusama world. So if you want to bridge to any other pirate chain, your call is going to go through Fala actually.
I know that.
Yeah.
That's why I asked, why Moonbeam? So what's the functionality?
The functionality is for people to be able to actually transfer Fala tokens and then through Sygma Bridge to transfer them to actual native assets. That's it.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so yeah, Mak, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is it. So one of my favorite questions, but this is for you. So can you just like raise your hand? Like who is a developer here? I'm just curious. Okay, so we have a pretty technical audience. Okay, and how many of you are familiar with Polkadot? Okay, we need to work on that a bit. So let's go to the next presentation now. So the next presentation will be by Dino from Astar Network. He's a core runtime developer. And there's one thing, so he promised me that he will not have like a super technical presentation. But now that I see how many developers are here, maybe that would be a better option. But let's see how it will go. So yeah, Dino, we're gonna need just a minute to prepare everything. That's why it's so challenging. It's like,
There's the last one.
Hope the delay is only with the last one.
It's like the mouse would be drunk, Okay, here we go. Okay.
I know you don't restart Macs, but maybe you should try.
Yeah. Okay. So for next time we're gonna solve this a bit differently. Almost. Okay. There we go. Dino.
Thanks. Let me just check that it.
Yeah, it just has a bit of delay. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, hi everyone, I'm Dino. I work at Astar Network as a runtime engineer, or if you're familiar with Polkadot, I guess you know what runtime is, but it's basically core blockchain logic. And today I'll be talking about one of our core features called the dapp staking. I was gonna say unique, but it's been copied a few times. And there are similar features out. So yeah, let's get started. I'll start off with a quick introduction to what Astar Network is. You're probably familiar with it if you're familiar with Polkadot. And then I'll get to the feature itself. So let's get started. So what's Astar Network? Well, Astar Network is a blockchain that's big in Japan. And we support both EVM and WASM, smart contract execution engines. So EVM is well known by everybody. It's the OG of smart contracts. We had it deployed since Astar launched about a year and a half ago. And recently we also introduced a second virtual machine on Astar, which supports WASM smart contracts. It's Parity's Pellet Contracts engine. De facto language for it is Ink, but other languages are being developed for writing smart contracts. And we also offer only on testnet, but eventually on mainnet is a cross-virtual machine, which is basically a virtual machine on top of virtual machines, which allows EVM and WASM smart contracts to communicate. It doesn't happen via a bridge like between different chains, but internally, like everything happens on a single chain. So why WASM? How our CEO Sota likes to say, and he quotes Gavin Wood, of course, like EVM is today, WASM is the future, or maybe Risk V, as we've recently seen. So the idea is to bring as much as Web2 devs into the Web3 world as possible, and to do it in the easiest way as possible. Of course, Solidity is great. It was the first. One of our guys, our CTO doesn't like EVM that much. He likes to talk smack about it, but to be fair, it's the OG. Like EVM was the first, and and he invented. What? Gavin invented. Yeah, of course, Gavin invented EVM. So the idea is to provide a different environment, like, okay, Web2, you're familiar with TypeScript, JavaScript, maybe C++, maybe Java, C#, and all of those can be compiled to WASM targets, which allows devs to use existing tools they're used to and just make a jump to Web3, to WASM, without learning everything from scratch. Of course, Astar is part of Polkadot ecosystem. We are a parachain.
We were actually the third parachain to secure a slot. So we are also one of the OG, one of the oldest projects in Polkadot. But again, we are still a baby chain, as our CEO likes to say, since we've been live for a little over a year, maybe close to a year and a half. So we're still under heavy development, like fully functional, but still under heavy development. So one of our core slogans is like, Astar Network represents the future of multi-chain smart contracts. Why multi-chain? I think Mak covered a lot of multi-chain before, but we are focused not as much on bridging as on XCM. But today I will talk about smart contracts, or dApps, dApps. So you'll forgive me if I use smart contract and dApp interchangeably, just to keep presentation as simple as possible. So smart contracts, dApps, devs build them. You guys who raised hands build, maybe some of you build dApps. So how do devs build great dApps? Well, before it used to be, like back in the day, a long time ago, like a few months ago, it used to be very difficult. You had to go to GitHub, find, for example, Uniswap 2 repo, and you had to fork it. And then you had to clone that repo, and so on. So it was a lot of work, a lot of manual work. Now you can just ask a tool like this to help you out, or maybe even in the, in the IDE, like a GitHub Copilot. So it's super easy today. But still, it's not. But still, what do you need as a dev? Like, what does everybody need? You need financial incentive, right? Everybody needs money to live, to eat, to enjoy life. And so how do you come by? Like, you want to build, you want to join Web3, you want to build something, you need money. You need something to live off. So there are various ways of getting money, getting the funding. For example, there are grant programs, some in Web3, some not. There's fundraising, some more centralized, some less. Like, for example, you can go to some VC, maybe some venture capitalists will invest in you, or maybe you can do some crowdfunding, who knows. You can also make a cool project and issue your own tokens, but but that's a bit difficult. It can be cool if you're building such a complex project, but building a whole tokenomics from scratch is daunting, or can be daunting. We at Astar offer an alternative to this, a really decentralized alternative that is hopefully sustainable. And this is basically dApp staking. So what is dApp staking? In a single sentence, it's basic income for developers. It's the core feature of Astar Network, whose purpose is to put part of the inflation as a rewards as basic income for developers. You build a good app, you can earn directly from core blockchain's protocol. I'll get into it soon. So how do you earn? You build a good app, you need to attract support. Like, let's say I fork Uniswap v2 and I just deploy it. Does it mean I start earning Astar, which is native? Astar is the native currency on Astar. I don't. I need to attract support from people who hold Astar tokens, from the community. And if they decide to nominate me as a good app, I will start earning some rewards, basically on a daily basis. I'd like to say that as a staker, let's say you have Astar and you stake on a dApp, you never transfer your tokens to that dApp. Tokens are always in your account. You control them, they're only locked. Locked tokens prevent you from like transferring them to someone else, from selling them, and yeah, so they're still yours, but they are locked. Of course, you can unlock them at any time, just it takes some time for them to be available, like same as in other staking protocols, I guess. So how does it look like? This is a very basic overview. You get some Astar, you connect to the portal, you view different dApps. There are like NFT dApps, DeFi dApps, there are some infra dApps, gaming dApps, and so on. And there was even some dApp, not on Astar, but on Shiden, that let you generate your own digital girlfriend pillow. It got delisted quite soon by the community. But it also got listed in the first place, so I guess they weren't happy with the pillows. So you check out the different dApps and you can stake. As a staker, why would you stake on a dApp? Because you want to support it. Yeah, everybody's good in their heart, they want to support good projects, but when you stake, when you lock your tokens, you also earn rewards, again, from the inflation. So both the staker, you, if you stake, is rewarded, as well as the developer, which can also be you, is rewarded. Once you get your rewards, you can do with them whatever they want. They aren't vested or locked anymore. You can choose to restake them, whatever. For devs, it's a similar story, but when you deploy a dapp, you don't automatically start earning rewards. You need to attract some support. People need to vote for you. They need to nominate you. They need to stake on you. And your reward is based on how much Astar has been staked on you. So for example, if, I don't know, Mario's dapp has 100 Astar stake on him and mine has only 10, he will earn 10 times more rewards. So it sounds simple and easy, but unfortunately it doesn't work super well right now. I'll get to that later. This is also a basic overview. Like, you launch a dapp on Astar Network, which is of course permissionless. Anyone can launch a dapp, be it EVM or WASM smart contract. Community votes to list you into dapp staking, to put you into dapp portal, and you start attracting support. Stakers stake on you, and you get to claim rewards. What you do with those rewards is up to you. You can choose to distribute them to community, like to attract more stakers. You can choose to stake on other dapps. You can stake it on yourself, so it's up to you. The idea is that projects should be transparent to their community, so the community knows what they're doing. And if project like the digital girlfriend pillow project don't deliver the pillows, then yeah, they get delisted and they lose support. So it's pretty simple. And the whole idea is very simple behind this. Is like the community supports good devs who build good products, who bring good utility to the network. Network value increases, which attracts more devs, and the cycle goes on. Of course, that's the happy ending story. I mean, we are counting on this, and of course it will happen. So what is Biddle to Earn? This is like an initiative, a program developed by our great community, which is really fantastic. Like, people are very, very engaged in helping each other, building learning materials and so on. So I'll give a short overview of that. It basically explains how to become a star in Astar Network. So you start by building a community and product. Then we can help you, if you want, with marketing and engagement with the community, well, and any other stakeholders. And then you join dapp staking, you get some dev support and so on. Like, there's a whole, I hope these slides will be shared. There's a whole detailed description of how this process works. So if you're interested, if you see this as something you'd like to explore, like, just, you can talk with us right now and we can help you. Again, our community is really great. I'm always amazed as a dev how much people who aren't as technical are ready to help each other, like spend whole day helping each other. To me, I also like that, but as all devs know, like when you help someone for a whole day, you don't get any dev work done. So this is our portal. I put a link here. Again, I hope it's not a QR code, but I hope these presentations will be shared with you. Like, you can go here, check out the dApps that are listed. If you got Astar, you can nominate it. You can check some statistics, some metrics on how much each dapp has staked on, how much it has been earning, and so on. Okay, so what's next for dapp staking? As I mentioned before, we identified some problems. So right now we're working on 3 major lanes, so to say. One is redesign of Astar tokenomics, and we're doing this with a local team, which has members. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say which team, but like, they have members from Serbia, Bosnia, and Slovenia, which is like awesome. I still don't know how we managed to get them. They're great guys. Hopefully I'll be able to say in the future who they are. So we're working together with them to redesign our tokenomics to make it more, well, to make it better. Also, as I said before, the more you got staked, the more rewards you earn. But if you're a new project, it's difficult to compete with a well-established old project. You come as a newcomer, okay, how are you going to compete with a big company, so to say? So we decided to change a bit how rewards are calculated. There will be reward tiers. So even if you're a newcomer, you can get into a tier which gives you solid rewards, but doesn't require you to directly compete with the biggest players. Like, you will be competing in your own league to start off with, and as you move up, you'll be able to earn more rewards. And we want to make the whole staking experience more dynamic and interactive, since currently it's really not. So there will be more like events, more, I don't know, giveaways, and much more marketing activities involved from other projects. Yeah, that's it. As I promised, not technical. Thank you for listening. And
Okay, yeah, so the best thing about meetups is, because I think almost on every meetup there's always like, oh, I'm not sure if I should say that, but you know, blah, 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 something will happen. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to learn more about like the tokenomics and stuff. So, okay, do we have any questions for Dino? And first one?
Yeah, as a C# developer, is there any existing SDKs or something that could be used to already compile dApps using C#?
ooh, I don't know.
Okay, so the question was, as a C# developer, are there any existing SDKs that can be used?
The question is to compile dApps, right?
To compile dApps, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so is there any library or something that can be used already to generate dApps?
For C#, no, but there is a toolchain which allows you to generate WASM from C#. So there is that. And then well, WASM itself is just a build target, just a build target. But you cannot write smart contracts for our engine in C#. Like there is no off-the-shelf support yet. But the thing is, like with EVM, of course, you cannot write EVM smart contracts in C#. But here you can. You could if you were to build the framework around it, and what it revolves around, like Pellet Contracts, which is the engine which runs WASM smart contracts on Astar, exposes a very limited API. When I say limited, I mean it's not huge, not that it's limited in functionality, but it gives you enough features to fully interact with the blockchain. And if you utilize those APIs, anything that compiles to WASM can communicate with it. But to answer your question, to the best of my knowledge, there is no C# support for building smart contracts on Astar. No. Yet, yeah. TypeScript is being developed. It's called Ask with exclamation mark and anything else. Yeah, I know about Ask, which is for TypeScript. Yeah, Ink. There's Ink, which is for Rust devs. Ink, Rust, and Ask is assembly script. And Solidity, of course.
Okay. Any more questions? Come on, there are so many developers here. I'm pretty sure you have some questions for Dino. No? Okay. So yeah, Dino, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I guess we are at the last presentation. This one will not be so technical. I'm gonna go like into Dino's direction. So I'm gonna talk a bit about Web3 adoption. So let's start with some pretty big announcements that happened in the Polkadot ecosystem in the last few months. Well, as you can see here, the absolute winner is Astar, who came out with announcements of cooperation with Toyota and Sony. So I'm pretty sure those companies don't need introduction, but in case if you would like to get some more details about those partnerships, you have how to say, like the guys of themselves who can, you can ask questions directly and they can give you some more info on that. So one pretty big announcement that happened in the Polkadot ecosystem came out approximately 1 month ago by our Apillon partners as well, the Kilt protocol. So Kilt is decentralized identities provider, and they announced a partnership with Axel Springer. Axel Springer is kind of like a media house, something like that. Well, let's put it that way, that it's a company with 15,000 plus employees. And Kilt protocol, one of the services that they provide is the DID, so decentralized identifiers. And what this cooperation will bring is basically each of the employees will have its own DID created. So this is one of the metrics that will really boost the on-chain. Well, one of the announcements is will really boost the on-chain metrics. And the last one, it's the Polkadot and Aventus. Aventus is one of the parachains, cooperation with Bitport. So if there is anyone who, let's say, who was professional in music, or to be more precise, who was like a DJ or something, or like buying electronic music, I'm pretty sure like that you know Bitport already. So this is one of the biggest like marketplaces for well, to buy music. And what they announced, so they're gonna build the Web3 version of this marketplace. So this is again like pretty interesting stuff. So okay, this was just like a quick ecosystem check. So our team, we went to Denver on the ETH Denver conference, which happened like in the early March. So ETH Denver, it's a pretty big conference. This is one of those conferences that grew from, in comparison with last year to this year, it almost doubled the amount of visitors. So last year there were like 8,000 to 10,000 visitors there. This year there were like 15,000 to 20,000. And as you can imagine, well, actually, as the name suggests, this is a conference that is organized by the Ethereum community, but it's not limited to Ethereum community, or I mean to Ethereum ecosystem only. And that's where Polkadot had pretty nice presence as well. And my, like, what I'm trying to say here is there were some pretty interesting discussions held in those presentations. But nevertheless, how technical the audience is, like most of the topics discussed were about Web3 adoption. So if I sum it up, I heard pretty interesting like analogy that like Web3 is kind of like a startup looking for a product market fit. So at the moment there is like lots of innovation going on, like lots of super advanced like technology being built, but there is one key missing here, like one key step, and this is the users. And this brings us to the question, like how can we boost Web3 adoption? So of course, I think that every project has its own different narrative or like approach how they're going to boost that. But like one pretty interesting thing that was mentioned is the account abstraction. So considering how many developers are here at the moment, I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with the term. But this is one of the things that will like help to solve the key barrier for the user to start participating in Web3. So one of the key steps that need to be, how to say, like made if you want to participate in Web3 is that you need a wallet. So that you can start, like interacting like on-chain. But now imagine that your, the famous saying, like imagine that your grandma would have to create a wallet, So I don't know, open MetaMask or like Ledger, write down those like 24, like 12 different words, do some duplicates, save one here, save another one at your parents' house, or blah blah, It's challenging. And this is like a big roadblock for why lots of users don't even like start making the first steps. And account abstraction is one of those things that will help simplify the this step. So even though the account abstraction is like mostly correlated with the Ethereum ecosystem, but it's a logic that is also like important in different ecosystems. That's something that we are also doing at Apillon. So, for example, I'm going to touch base on what we do at Apillon in one of the later slides. But when you register the platform, you can simply create the account with username and password. And what we do in the background is we create the wallet for you on chain. So one of the key benefits about the account abstraction is that so users will be, to put it shortly, it will simplify wallet creation. Also, you'll be able, for example, on the Ethereum chain, like pay for gas fees in like any ERC20 token and so on and so on. But this is not an Ethereum meetup, so let's go to some more Polkadot related stuff. One pretty big thing that came out, I think that was like a month ago or something, was the small dot. Actually, that's a topic that's been discussed for quite a few years, but like I think it went live like a month ago or something like that. So what is small dot? So Web3 dApps, so if you would like to use, I don't know, like make a swap or like use like a dapp or like, I don't know, swap tokens, so the dapp needs to interact with the blockchain. And the way to do that is via the node. But here we come to an interesting, how to say, I'm going to call it a paradox, even though that might not be the most appropriate word. So from the decentralization point of view, it would be ideal that each user would have its own node, to have like everything properly decentralized. But if you'd like to run your own node, it's a pretty, you need to have some technical knowledge, or like technical ability. For example, like I'm not a developer, and there is no way that I would run my own node. So as a solution to that, there are a few entities that came up, such as like Alchemy, Infura, Morales, so like infrastructure providers. And we came to a point where the majority of calls processed are done by only few entities. And that brings us to, how to say, to bottleneck, to like a key point of failure, or like single point of failure, let's put it that way. So as a solution to that, some pretty smart brains, like at Parity. Parity is basically one of the entities behind the Polkadot. They developed a small dot. Small dot, in a nutshell, is a light client. So basically, it's like a lighter version of Node that runs directly in the browser. So what that brings, so it basically boosts the decentralization and also helps like with the user experience. Just that instead of like calling like some infrastructure providers nodes, you can run your own lighter version of a node like in a browser. So, okay. How we at Apillon are boosting Web3. First, considering that, let's say that not all of you are familiar with what we do. So at Apillon, we're building a platform that enables developers easier access to the services that parachains provide. So for example, we have integrations at the moment live, like Astar Network, which is an IPFS provider. We have integrated Moonbeam. And now we come to a point where I should say like, I'm not sure if I should mention this, but there is one more integration coming up, like pretty soon. The guys from Astar here are laughing already because they know what I'm talking about. So yeah, so what we do, we build a platform that is kind of like a black box, and you guys as a developer can just come, like configure an app and get an API and build on top of it. While in the back end, we manage all the services for you and also like handle like the payments and all of that. So how we see the steps toward the Web3 adoption. So I would say that there are like three different audiences that we need to address. One is like just like the normal users, like I don't know, like your grandma or like your cousins who are like not developers. And account abstraction is one of those things that will help like onboard like quote unquote like normal users. Another one is we need to onboard more builders. And that's what we do at Apillon. We're simplifying the steps for like, let's say we give like a front-end developer an option to actually start building like in Web3 without the necessity to, I don't know, like start digging smart contracts or like whatever, like XM or like, some super technical stuff. And another thing, another type of audiences that we need to like attract in case if we want to boost the Web3 adoption is enterprises. I would say that like enterprises are one of the key pieces, like to have the proper Web3 adoption. But again, there is one challenge with the enterprises. So enterprises, they need to know how much they will need to pay for the service, like for example, like in 12 months. So we're talking about the predictable pricing here, because without a predictable pricing, like there is no way that like an enterprise will buy out the service, because if there will be like a fluctuation of like 400%, like as in some cases, well, let's say in the good cases, it's like up 40% like with tokens. So that's something that enterprises cannot afford. And that's also one of the things that we're solving at Apillon. Like there are different approaches how we do that. Like it's mostly on a case-by-case basis. But all I can say is that we are not like messing around with some like algorithmic like mumbo-jumbo approach and like some like speculation. Okay, so let's get slightly more specific here now. So we have a few pretty interesting initiatives coming up. Some will come out like I think in 2 weeks, and others will need maybe like a month or more. So that's the one that I'm really passionate about, because like I'm working on it at the moment. So we're gonna enable like projects to host their websites in a decentralized manner. Because one of the paradoxes at the moment is, if you look at the majority of, I don't know, like Ethereum, Polkadot, whichever ecosystem projects, is that we're preaching about Web3, but at the same time our websites are on WordPress or like hosted on AWS and so on and so on. So we're preaching about Web3, but like not doing it. And that's one of the things that we're gonna enable is to host your website on IPFS. Like not necessarily like as a primary website, but usually it's good to start with backups. I think Uniswap or like one of those exchanges has already that in place. So they have like their primary website on the centralized servers, while like a backup is on IPFS. So yeah, in case if you're interested, just find me later on the balcony or something. Okay, that's one thing that will go out like pretty soon. It's like the NFT minting. So we have already integrated the Moonbeam network. So you already heard from the Mak's presentation, and I'm not sure you were mentioning it, but you were asking about it. So Moonbeam network is the EVM of Polkadot, one of the EVMs. Astar is also has their own EVM. So that integration will enable users to mint NFTs like in a pretty simple manner. So at the moment, let's say like a developer would need, I'm gonna paraphrase, but let's say a developer would need like 2 hours to, I don't know, mint like whatever, 15 NFTs or something. Like again, I'm paraphrasing. I'm pretty sure each of you has like a different number in mind. But like with this integration, a non-developer will be able to mint NFTs in approximately like 10 minutes. So this is like the amount of simplification that will be done. And one of the other things that is also in the pipeline that's going to take like slightly more long time. So the Web3 login. So here we come back to the account abstraction stuff that I was talking about earlier. So that will kind of like look like a module that like projects will be able to implement and like enable users to simply create accounts with email, password, and so on and so on. So in case if you are like developers interested in checking out our platform, feel free to scan the QR code. You can give it a try. We're always happy for some feedback. At the moment, we have more than 600 users already. We are still in the closed beta phase. So, as the new integrations are coming in, we need to, try everything, to see where the bugs are and fix it. But that's why we need you guys, to give us the feedback so that we can spin the wheel faster. And we are coming to the last topic here, and now is the events and conferences. There are also some, there's a team from the Polkadot, which they are the organizers of the Polkadot mini conference that will happen on the 6th of May. You're all very welcome. This will happen in Slovenia on the idyllic location. Feel free to just scan the QR code, or you can, speak with the guys later. I would also like to give a shout out to a few conferences that we as Apillon will be present, but not only as Apillon, but like also the Polkadot ecosystem. And this is the block split, which I'm pretty sure most of you are already familiar with. That will happen at the end of May. We are already looking forward to it. There's going to be like quite a few projects. And another one, like I just need to check the name. So it's the Web3 Tales conference that will happen in the early June. So yeah, this is it from my side. First let's start with questions, and then I'm going to invite you for some beer and pizza and so on and so on. So do we have any questions? Do you know?
The Web3 login, is this in collaboration with Kilt?
I mean, like when we talk about identities, it's most likely like a Kilt nearby. But again, this is one of those things that I wouldn't go too much into details because I don't want to promise too much. But like, yes, it's definitely Okay, one question from the back.
It's like authentication, right?
Yes.
Do you need to have a database, or do you just enter a blockchain as an email or a username, and blockchain is actually database? How does it work?
Well, in terms of the architecture, like I cannot like give you too much details of that because, like, as I mentioned, I'm not a developer, and this is something that our product team is working on. But if you're interested, like I can definitely get you in touch with our product team, and they can, you can speak with our guys a bit more in details about that. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I think it's time to go for a beer and have some chat. And also there will be pizza coming, I think, like in 5 to 10 minutes. So don't run away. Yeah. So thank you all for coming. And also, I would like to thank again to the ChainSafe staff. Like, I hope this is not the last meetup here. And yeah, looking forward to the next ones. Thank you.
Što nisi ponovio pitanja koja si ti dobio.
Ja, da.
Bravo, bravo. Svaka čast.